everybody, it's Cassie from the Wood County District Public Library, back for another summer STEM video with our friends from Lubrizol. So today's fairy tale that we're going to tie our science back to is Jack and the Beanstalk. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this, and we've built a lot of our summer reading program around this story. And one of the things that I always notice about the story is that it's a really good thing those beans are magic, because when Jack's mother throws them out, she doesn't plant them in the ground, she just throws them out the window and they grow into an enormous beanstalk. I've got a friend here from Lubrizol who knows an awful lot about growing plants, and so we're going to talk to him today. So hi, John.
Hello, how is everybody?
I think we're all doing pretty good.
Very well.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, and
Okay.
then we'll start talking about some of the plants that you grow.
Okay, so my name's John Cubberly. I work for Lubrizol Advanced Materials, and I've been there for about 12 years now. As part of my job, I do not grow plants at the plant. But over the years, I do a lot of gardening, and so I figured this may be a great topic for the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if our kids who are watching this, or if anybody who's watching this, if they want to get started planting some seeds, what are some good tips that you have for how they can start that process?
Well, seeds are actually pretty easy to grow, as long as you have the right conditions. You need to find a good location to plant that seed. That could be anything. And so some of the ideas that I have are some of the pots. Actually, you have some pots in front of you
I do, yeah.
it really can be anything. It can be something like this. This is something interesting. I cut this is a salt container. And so you could punch some holes in the salt container, and actually you could put your seed in here, water it, and actually just plant this whole thing in the ground. And eventually this will really decompose the cardboard itself well. So that's an idea for the kids.
So if we're going to plant something and we're not just going to grow it inside our house, but we actually want to take it outside and plant it in the ground,
Mhm.
what do we need to be aware of about what we're putting it in? So you showed the salt container, and
Yep.
that's made of cardboard. And then I've got two different egg cartons here. This one is cardboard and this one is styrofoam. Is
Yep.
there one that is better to put outside in the ground than the other?
There is. So the cardboard one would be much better to put on the ground. The cardboard one over time is going to degrade, decompose. It's actually going to become part of the soil. The styrofoam, however, the styrofoam takes a really, really long time in order for that material. And so you're not going to have you're probably not going to have a good plant out of that. In fact, most plants will only grow as big as the container that they're in. So the root structure is a big part of the planting process. So if you think about that styrofoam container, the root structure is only going to go down so far. And so that it's probably going to remain very, very tiny. So
Yeah. And what's really nice about the cardboard ones is you can cut them apart into each of the little individual cups. You can plant your seed in this and then put it in the ground. And
yeah,
then as this degrades, the roots will be able to come down so that your plant can grow nice and big. And that's not going to happen if you use the styrofoam one. So you want to do some starter seeds, make sure you're using a material that will start to decompose when you bury it in the ground. But you
yeah,
don't have to put your seeds outside, right? You can grow them inside as long as you have the right kind of pot.
yep, that's
Now,
exactly right.
one of the things that I've noticed about all of our pots is they've all got holes in the middle of the bottom.
Yeah.
This one's actually got a lot of holes. So why is that important? Won't my dirt fall out?
So it maybe a little bit will fall out, but that's about it. But that is really important for the root system, because what you could end up if you saturate the soil and you keep standing water in that soil, what could happen is you end up with what they call root rot, and that could kill the plant. So there's too much water. It's saturated with water. You and let me come back a little bit because you were asking about what is the balance. There's a
Hmm.
balance between the soil, there's a balance between the water, and then there's a balance between the temperature to get the seed going. And if you don't have all three of those in a good condition, then it won't grow. So water, as one example, if you saturate that seed with that water and you keep it underwater, it's not actually going to grow. The um, the DNA or the material that actually they call it enzymes, but the enzymes that actually break the seed apart probably will not happen if it's saturated with water. So the holes in the bottom are very important. That allows that water to kind of filter through the soil, through the root structure, and the roots can take out as much water as they want. We don't have to worry about that because they're going to take out as much as they need. Whereas the excess water goes down and filters down into the bottom. So that's critical. Otherwise, I've had experience with root rot and situations where I killed the plant because I had too much water in the plant itself.
That's right. So you might think that by giving it lots and lots and lots of water, you're helping your plant to grow, but you have to be really careful because if you overwater your plants, it can be just as bad as not giving them enough water. I know the farmers around here really pay attention to that when they plant their crops because if it rains too much, it could damage their crops. So
Yeah,
that's an important thing to keep in mind. But so some plants they need more water than other plants, right?
they do. Yep, yes, they do. Yeah, so it depends upon the type or the species of plant that you're dealing with. Some plants are really water loving. In fact, some plants live in the water. There are some plants out there that you can put in ponds and things like that that become their root structure actually freely floats in the pond itself. But they can do that. If you have a tomato plant, however, it's not going to be able to do that. As soon as you take the root structure out of the ground, more than likely over maybe a period of a few hours or a day, you may end up killing that plant. And if you were to put it in the pond, it really wouldn't do anything at that point in time. So,
Well, that's good to know.
yeah.
So, here's another question that I have for you, John. If I plant my seed and I put it in a pot and I want to keep it inside, where in my house should I keep it for the best results to help it grow?
So you'll want to keep it to start. You'll want to keep it somewhere where it's warmish, 70, 80 degrees, somewhere around there. I know our houses don't get up to 80, but 70 degrees is fine. Um, you'll want to keep it somewhere where there's a little bit of sunlight. Now, for the seed that you're planting, though, the sunlight I've learned over the years is not as important because before the seed actually starts to break open and you get a little seedling, nothing is really happening other than seed breaking apart. As soon as you start to get the seedling, though, that's when you really want to introduce the sun conditions and things like that. So you could really put that anywhere. I would encourage the kids to put that somewhere where you have a mild sunlight, your kitchen, somewhere where you've got some light in the area. It's not going to hurt it. It will only help or promote the growth.
Great.
Yeah.
So, we talked a little bit about some of the containers that you can put seeds in to make them grow. But where are we getting these seeds that we want to plant? Where can I
So you
find seeds and what kinds of plants do you think I should look for?
Okay. So if you're going to grow your own garden, you can go to just about um, any home and garden store and pick up some seeds. So, for example, these are some seeds that I bought at probably Menards or something like that. Hopefully, I can say Menards. But so I bought these a few years ago, and so you can get them from a store. You could also go to a greenery or greenhouse or something, and you could get a seedling, a smaller plant that you could just put in the ground. Or you could do something else, which I have a habit of doing each year, is that many of the vegetables and fruits that I grow have seeds. And you can actually take those seeds at the end of the season, dry those out, save them over the winter, and then repot them or pot them in January, February, March timeframe. So there are a couple of things that kids can do.
I actually had a peach today with my lunch, and I
Ah,
saved my peach pit
very nice.
right here.
Right?
So this is in the middle of the peach, and I'm sure that if you've had peaches or maybe cherries or apples, you've eaten it down to just these seeds. So I could save this seed and I could dry it out and I could plant it in the spring and it would grow into a peach tree.
Yes.
It would probably
Yeah.
take a while though, right?
It would take a while. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it would have to have those right conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, there are some enzymes in that seed that allow it to break open. And so you got to allow the plant seed to really do its thing.
And there are some plants that aren't going to like being planted here in Ohio, right?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct. In fact, I have a few here.
Yeah, so I
One,
know that you've got a bunch of plants around you that you've been growing in your house. So as you
we
answer that
do.
question, why don't
Mhm.
we take a look at some of the things you brought to show us?
Okay, so we have a few plants that my son has actually helped me out with. And he kind of takes these little jobs on to try to get these seeds growing. And probably about 6 months ago or so, he took a mango seed and actually grew that. So a mango is a tropical plant, a tropical fruit, I should say, that's grown in a tropical area. And if we grew that mango here, it would not survive.
Mm-mm.
It would not survive the winter. We have harsh conditions that it would just say, I've had enough, I'm done, kaput. So we actually cut this mango open today. So what you're seeing is the inside of the mango. And on the inside, there's this barrier that covers actually the seed. And you have to cut the seed open, you have to cut this barrier open in order to get the seed. But you can see that the seed is actually very large.
That is very big.
So you don't see very many seeds that are really that large.
Mm-mm.
Um, and so what my son did is he took a paper towel and he wet that paper towel and he put the seed in between the paper towel. And he wasn't worried about light conditions. He was only worried about keeping this moist and keeping it warm. And so I think it took maybe 3 or 4 weeks before it finally we ended up with a seedling. So I'm going to show you what we have now, and this is
Yeah.
actually the mango plant that we have.
That is
Um,
so cool.
yeah, so we the other day he's actually been taking them out during the day, so they get some good sunlight. They get some just get to really breathe the air out there. And I'll tell you, the other day we don't know what it was, but we think it was a bird that actually picked it up and took it out of its pot.
Oh
So we
no.
don't, we don't what we don't know is if the leaves are drooping because of that, if there was some damage to the root system or what. But, so right now we're keeping an eye on them. Also see with this plant that this tree that at one point it's very difficult to see, but at one point there was another stem that was our original stem that had come up, and we thought that was going to turn into the tree, and it stopped. And then what happened is this one here actually came up. So and this plant here, this tree here will grow mangoes at some
Wow,
point.
but probably not for a while, right?
Probably not for a while, yeah. And what I don't know is if we'll even get it to grow mangoes because in order to do something like that, we might have to put it in a greenhouse or
Yeah,
something like that and
because
get it a larger pot. So it may not produce fruit.
we are not a tropical climate here in Bowling Green.
I would like to think we are, but we're not.
We're not, so we couldn't plant that mango outside and expect it to do very well. We'd have to put
Yeah,
it into a special greenhouse or a hothouse so that it has
yes,
the right conditions that it's used to in order to actually grow.
that's
That's
exactly right.
really cool. What other plants do you have around in there, John?
So I'll show you. We've got a cactus. And this one's going to be very difficult to see. In fact, I can barely see it. But we actually grew a cactus from seed. The
Very
seeds
cool.
come in and they're very, very tiny. This one is so small though, it's very difficult to see. And we do think that this one actually died. But it would be very similar to this cactus here.
Okay.
So when they start out, they're very tiny. Now, what we think happened to this cactus is he died from root rot. We think we didn't have the right structure below the base or structure that we had him in, and I think we gave him a little too much water. So that's one. A couple others I wanted to show you. Again, my son, he loves getting into these. They're called succulents, which means they take moisture from the atmosphere. And this one is called a jade hobbit. And right now he's also been putting this outside, but we don't have to water this one as much because it takes moisture from the atmosphere. And he's also right now, I'll show you, he's taken a couple leaves off this and he's drying them out. And so he's going to grow some extra jade trees is what he's going to do. So you can dry these out. And as soon as they dry out, basically this is kind of a seed, and then you can plant this. And then at that point in time, you should start to get a root structure from this as well.
That's amazing that plants can do that. You can just, not all of them obviously, but somewhere you can just break a small piece off and replant it and get a new plant. That's really cool. What's that?
Yeah, so this is a money tree. And so no money grows off of it.
Oh,
Otherwise, we'd be doing other things today. But this is a money tree. And have you ever heard of somebody practicing bonsai?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so what he's doing is he's got wires connected to this tree right now. What he's trying to do is get these branches to actually loop around each other. And if you look at the very bottom of this, you can see that they're intertwined there.
That's really cool.
And so he's trying to keep that up. And so he's this is something that takes a while. You got to be patient about something like this. It does not happen overnight as well. Just want to grow at their own pace, but you can manipulate them a little bit. You can move them. You can try to get them to grow different locations.
And if any of the kids watching aren't familiar with what bonsai is, it's where you kind of coax a tree to grow in miniature almost. So
yes,
it's
exactly.
the same age as like the big oak tree you might have out in your yard, but it's really small and it'll fit on your desk. And it's a really specific art. There's a really specific method to it, but it's pretty cool when you can get it to work.
It really is. It really is neat. So.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Do you have anything else that you wanted to show us from your plant collection?
I don't, but what I was going to say is if all else fails, and they don't have a pot or something like that to put soil in, you could also plant in your shoe a seed if you really wanted to.
Inside a shoe?
Inside the shoe. So kids, you guys can take an old shoe that you're done with, and if you want to plant it in there, please feel free to. There are so many containers that you can use for planting a seed. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, John. That's really cool. Now, we have a little bit of a garden here at the library, too. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to take the camera out to take some footage of it to show everybody, but when you stop by the library during our express service hours, you can peek out the window and see our little garden. We're growing beans and tomatoes this summer, just like Jack would have on his farm. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, John. This is really cool to see all the plants that you have in your house and to hear a little bit about how we can grow some for ourselves.
Good. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And until next time, everybody, this is Cassie with Lubrizol for Summer STEM.